versus balance, and then also balancing between being being versus doing.
Being versus doing. So I was talking about my high school coach. I lost my train of thought.
I don't know, man. I got you distracted with that image that I shouldn't have planted in your mind. I could tell it was going somewhere good, though, dude.
What was the thing that we were talking about before that?
I can't remember.
We were talking about life master. All right, give me another question. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's okay. Yeah. So how do you balance now, since we're on the subject of balance? You're running your groups. You've got your supplement company. You've got your fitness stuff. By the way, both my wife and son are doing your fitness program. Again, my wife did it about a year or so ago and crushed it. And my son's doing it right now with her. He has lost, I think in the last, I want to say couple of weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks, has lost 10 pounds. He's put on a percentage of muscle. I catch him every once in a while looking in the mirror. And it's not about looking in the mirror. It's that I see that he's proud of himself. And I'm like, this is awesome, man. I like it. Man. And he's even kept us in line. He's like, Dad, come on now. We're not going to get donuts on Saturday. I'm like, I want a donut. He's like, nope, we're not doing it. We're not doing it.
One thing he might really love, because this will allow him to real time the decisions that he's making, how they directly are impacting his physiology, is go get a DEXA scan, DEXA. I took my son to go do one, and it's essentially like an MRI of your whole body. It takes 7 minutes, and it will tell you how much skeletal mass that you have in your left leg versus your right, how much muscle you have in your right arm versus your left, how much adipose tissue, how much weight you carry around that's like visceral fat. It's really, really cool. So month over month, his body's going to be changing a ton. And so when he's making these decisions and doing these programs, and if you do it every 90 days, man, to me, I believe that's the thing that inspires you and I the most as little boys and as men right now is momentum. When you can start to see a little fruit from the investment that you're putting in, that's what makes physical fitness so exciting. And it's one of the reasons that I feel like spiritual fitness is so difficult, because you can't see your muscle.
See it? How do you quantify it?
Yeah, that's why I believe that's like a frustration. It's been a frustration for me for a long time. And because when I work hard at business, I have a metric that I can show for it. If I work hard in my body, I have a metric that I can show for it. If I work hard at my marriage, I'm just going to keep it real. I get more action, and that is the result a lot of men are after. You know what I mean? Like, if we're keeping it real.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Money. Exactly. That is the desire of my heart. I was built this way. And I feel like there is a way that we can design a life to create the desires of our heart for everybody that's in our family. So when you're talking about balance and kind of like swinging back to that, I believe the greatest thing for me in my life when I talk about how do you balance it is I believe communication is the number one thing that has allowed me to actually figure out the game that I'm playing, because I grew up thinking that I needed to provide these certain types of things or be this certain type of person for my wife. And I never actually really had a conversation with her about like what's really going to make her happy. Yes, I know she wants a house. She's a mom, with 5 kids. We'll probably have more. But point is, like, she needs a house, she needs a car, she needs money to spend. But what is actually going to make her happy? Because I know that I had supplied all those things to her. And more than likely, she's pretty similar to me, meaning like it's not things that are going to make her happy. Like, what are the desires for her? What does she feel like the purpose for her life is? And having those types of conversation, I believe, will save men a lot of through the hoops of what they think they need to do, earn, or become to make their significant other happy. Does that make sense?
It does. One of the moments, I just want to share a little insight into your story, something that I observed of you and your wife. So the last time we got together, like I said, was in Park City. And, we were doing our thing. We were doing the cold water immersion, and we were having fun and having conversations and eating some great food. For vegan food, I'm like, dang, this is pretty good, because I like meat. I like meat, but that was pretty good.
Too.
But there was a moment where I saw you and your wife on that couch in the foyer, that front couch in the foyer by the entryway right there. And I saw you two completely dialed in and totally engaged when everything else was going on. There's people coming in and out, food's being cooked, people trying to ask questions and be engaged. And I saw how present you and her were. And that was very telling for me. It was a very powerful moment. And I think it ties into exactly what you're saying here is make her the focal point. Not all the time, because you have other things to do, and so does she. But finding time to make her the focal point is very, very important.
Yeah, but I think that's really, for you and I, man, how much different is our business like week over my family? I feel like if we live life by God's design, meaning like, let's do it 7 days at a time. You know, on the seventh day we rest. And so on that seventh day, when we're resting, that's when her and I actually connect, and we'll reconnect on vision. And if she can understand, like, and I feel like this is what frustrates maybe a lot of guys is they feel like, man, I don't have that much time to freaking communicate everything. Well, you don't have to communicate everything. You don't have to tell your wife the why for everything that you're doing if you can enroll her into the grand vision. So if your wife knows where you want to go with your business and your life, you won't need to call and ask permission for these different things that you'll need to do in order to get to understand the grand vision. And so when it comes down to communication, when we get together week to week, we talk about vision, and it changes week to week because, man, pandemic in 2020 forced us to pivot week over week. Man, I have a supplement company called Veritas Labs that was supplement-less for 2 months. So like I got wrapped over the head just like everybody else because I couldn't get my manufacturing in. So point is like week over week, if you guys just connect on where you want to go, man, it makes everything else so much easier.
Yeah, definitely. And your life her life better, your life better. I want to go back to something that you had said because you were talking about metrics, and I know that, for example, you're using the Whoop bands. And I know how important that is to you because you're tracking your recovery and your workouts and your sleep, all of that stuff through it. Do you think it's the metrics that you're measuring that help your ADD? I mean, you talked a lot about that, right? And so, like, what allows that ADD to like focus into a tangible result? Because I look at somebody who has like focus issues. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but then I see you turn into this elite level athlete, a high performing entrepreneur. How do you turn it from I can't focus as well to but I can kick ass in the areas that I'm engaged with? I hope I'm making sense with that.
Yeah, you're asking me how am I able to have a learning disability and then maybe play a position for 10 years that required ridiculous focus?
That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I believe it really, at the end of the day, man, it comes down to practice, but it also comes down to passion. You got to be doing things that you love. And that's not just for people with ADHD. That's for not hard to work hard at something that you're passionate about. You know, like lifting weights. Like, yes, initially I lifted weights because I was super skinny and I didn't want to be that anymore. So it was born from an insecurity. But then just much like your son is when you start to get I fell in love with the process of like picking a goal and then going to achieve it. And I believe that's one of the reasons why, man, God has blessed me with favor in the different things that I've gotten really good at setting a goal and then going to get it. So if we really look at like the goal achievement vehicle, like your vehicle is your mindset, you know, your discipline. It's awesome to have like the frame of a Bentley, but if you don't have a great engine in it, that Bentley's not going to go anywhere. And the engine represents your discipline. The discipline is going to take you everywhere you want to go. But if you don't have the right mindset, your discipline won't take you anywhere. And then I think the third component of like the vehicle that's going to take you to where you want to go is the fuel that you put inside of your car, AKA your faith, your belief system, like what you believe is possible. Because you must have a deep level of faith if you want to go out and do things and everybody else around you thinks that you can't. Because in order for you to kind of like in order for me to get out of Terre Haute, Indiana, that mentality, I had to have a faith system that would get me enough miles outside of my hometown. But you also had to have the discipline to continue to go those miles when they're freaking hard. But your mindset's the thing that's going to keep the rubber on the road. So I think for me, it's about taking that mindset and putting that into the different components of your life, into your physical, into your mental, into your emotional, into your spiritual, into your financial. Because, I mean, you can nail those 4, but if your money's not right, money matters, man. And anybody that tells you that it doesn't is lying to you.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, and not only that, you're talking about getting out of your hometown. There's friction there too. It's like Stephen Pressfield. Are you familiar with Stephen Pressfield? He wrote.
I'm not.
Yeah, he's an amazing author. Wrote The Gates of Fire about the Spartans. He wrote the War of Art, and he talks about this concept called the resistance. And the resistance shows up in many different forms. You talk about getting out of your hometown. There's people who are probably trying to pull you back because they don't want you to thrive and excel and make them look bad. There's little hiccups and little barriers and hurdles along the way that could deter you and make you turn around. So this resistance shows up in all of these different ways, and we have to be able to find systems, strategies, motivation, faith, like you talked about, to continue to drive on in the path of the resistance that will inevitably show up. It's just going to show up in a lot of different forms.
But that here's the sick part is the ones that grow comfortable with that resistance, those are the ones that win. Because if you grow comfortable with that resistance, in order to grow comfortable with that resistance, you have to grow stronger. In order to grow stronger, you have to stand under that resistance. I guess do we have enough time for me to share one little analogy?
Of course. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. All right. So I have a breathing coach, Wim Hof breathing coach that I go see once a week. And he's, week over week, I'm improving in that ability. And he was explaining to me how to improve my cardiovascular system by putting tension on it, AKA like resistance, like you said. I can grow my capabilities with that resistance. And the way that he was explaining it to me, I've never heard it explained like this, because I think all of us listening to this right now, man, we want to grow bright. We want to build legacy, aka we want to grow as high. If we're a tree, we want to grow as big and thick of a base as we can, and we want to grow as high as we can. And I always thought, if you want a tree to grow as high and as big as you can, put everything it needs at the base, where the roots are at. So it doesn't have to work hard to get them. But when we're talking about resistance, I learned this from him about 2 weeks ago. And he said, if you actually want your tree to go thick and tall, you actually need to pay more attention to the root system than you do the base of the tree. And what he meant by saying that is, if you want your roots to grow wider and deeper, you need to water where the roots are. You need to make those roots grow there to go there. And so, like, if we really think about that for life, if we have like five areas of our life that we really want to focus on, does it make sense to just give it to ourselves or make ourselves earn it? Resistance, for me, faith to do with my son that you might notice on Instagram is Man Academy. And so we wake up every day and we have daily doses of discomfort and discipline, not pain. Daily doses of discomfort and discipline that will grow us in those areas. As I wake up in the morning, I don't want to do a devotional every day. I don't want to pray every day. I don't want to lift weights every day. I don't want to do my mobility and my flexibility. I don't want to read 10 pages of a personal development or a mindset book. But those are the ways, that's what me and my son are committed to doing 5 days a week. And over the last 60 weeks, this is our 60th week. Over the last 60 weeks, we have done over 30,000 hours of intentional strategic work in those 5 areas. And so just imagine where men could be if they were more intentional and more strategic. And that kind of leads me back to the question you asked me about balance is, you can't balance where you don't have structure, and you can't have success where there is no order. That's why I love the name of your show. That I am so aligned with your mindset in that if you want to grow in these 5 areas of life, man, you have to create resistance, AKA water where you want to go. don't water where you're at because you'll stay right there. So if you want to be successful, get around 5, 6